kind of say to people, let things unfold as they're meant to. Some people go, am I meant to get back with my ex? I'm like, don't fixate on someone. Don't fixate on one tiny fragment. So many times I see people, they stay knocking on a closed door. That's painful after a time if you think about it. You can spend as long as you want looking at the closed door, hoping it would open, or you can turn around and see a whole lot of other possibilities.
Meet Amber, spiritual mentor and energy healer who combines coaching with psychic guidance to help people overcome emotional roadblocks.
People will self-sabotage themselves through bad eating habits and not going to gym because the way they talk to themselves.
When you do love yourself or come from a place of self-respect and value for yourself and your time and your efforts, when you have a change of mind about that internally, it's nearly like everything kind of awakens up that's better for you. Usually when you're kind of in a cycle of trauma bonding and things like that, it's like that high, that adrenaline rush. You get these butterflies in your tummy, that's anxiety. Then when you meet somebody that might be a bit different from your usual type, you might kind of go, oh, but I don't know if I have any passion, or I don't know if there's a spark. Give it a bit of a chance. Love feels like coming home. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to be on high alert.
Before we start this episode, I would like to thank each and every one of you for listening to these episodes. If you could take a couple of more seconds out your time, share, like, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're listening on. It would honestly mean so much to us and would help us grow the podcast. Now let's get straight to the episode.
Hey Amber, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Demi. I'm delighted to be up here.
So you're literally only saying you're from Galway?
Yes. Yeah, I'm from Galway. I was in college in Dublin. I love any excuse to come up to Dublin. I'm like, bring me up here.
And so what do you do?
So I'm a heart healer and I'm a psychic medium. So what I'm doing at the moment is when I'm working with clients, I do some healing with them. So energy healing, energy cleansing, letting go of the past, trying to work through old stagnant energy, old relationships, any kind of bullying or anything in the past, to get rid of it. So I work with the client's energy, and everyone's individual, and I try and bring them to a space in their life that they can move forward from the past. And then in terms of the psychic mediumship, I'm working with spirit to basically talk to them about different things going on in their lives. Sometimes loved ones come in and talk to them as well during a session. So it's really nice. There's no day that's the same.
Yeah.
And there's no client that's the same. And any client that comes to me, even if they've been coming to me for a year or two, every single time they come is a completely different experience. Sometimes I could be talking to their granny and I'm fully immersed in what their granny wants to say to them, and sometimes I'm just straight in with the healing. I might be delving into the past or talking to them about the future and getting them excited for that. So it just depends.
So would you have like a client who'll book in for both kind of thing, like Reiki and?
Yeah, so I do the healing and guidance. So that's kind of my main session that I do with people. And the reason that I like to do them both together is just because there's always guidance that has to come with healing, and there's always healing that needs to come with guidance. A lot of the time when people just book in for a guidance session with me, I'm kind of like, oh, they probably need the healing the most, because I can talk to them about, I see that you're meant to start a business, or I see a soulmate on the horizon, like I see that you're going to meet somebody, but they might have a mental or emotional block up that could prevent that potentially from happening. So what I try and do is I try and do the healing as well as the guidance, so that they're getting the healing and then they can move forward with the guidance that I'm giving them, should they want to. So a lot of the time, for example, if someone's coming in, just yesterday I had lots of clients in that were about soulmates. So a lot of people coming in, they were nearly giving up and just feeling a bit down, a bit negative, and just feeling like it'll never happen for them, kind of deep down. And I was saying to them, well, what are you saying to yourself? Like, are you saying things like, oh, I'm fine on my own, and, I'm good, and, that kind of thing. And when I was talking to them about how they speak to themselves, their views, their beliefs, even though they said they were open to meeting somebody, they kind of realised then that maybe there was a little bit there that needed to be healed. So when I started talking to them about the person that I seen coming in for them, which I did see, it was all new partner card and, new love on the horizon kind of cards. So they could see it as well. And when I started talking to them about that, like the light just came in their eyes, and there was just one of those things where they could believe it, if you get me. And it was like their energy changed to a more open and receptive. So I was talking to them about different things that they can start to do and think in the meantime, so that they can welcome in love when they're ready. Because I could see it approaching, and I was like, you're a bit closed off. If somebody comes in and they're not your usual type, you might kind of dismiss them. So I didn't want that to happen. So I was basically trying to get them prepared.
Yeah, it's mental. Like, I literally only had a guest there I was going to say a couple of weeks ago. I think that was probably like 2 months ago. That she kind of done the same thing. She combined two different things, because she finds the same kind of idea when it comes to personal training and online coaching, that people will self-sabotage themselves through like bad eating habits and not going to the gym because the way they talk to themselves. So she kind of combined helping people on like self-reflection and stuff like that. That she feels like both of them work together the same as yourself, like Reiki and this is a tarot card reading, or this?
Yeah, I do like it's a psychic energy read, but I use cards. So I'll use angel, oracle and tarot cards, because I think people like to see it. And it's also nice for me to be like, oh yes, I'm correct. Do you know, when I'm reading somebody's energy, that I'm able to kind of have a few cards as well that just show them. So if I'm talking about, I see somebody new coming in, they might go, I don't know. But if a card comes out then to back up what I'm saying, that I might just flick the deck, and then all of a sudden the new love card comes out and they see that, then there's a little bit more, okay, she's, I do need to listen to this. Because sometimes if it's something you've been waiting around for a long time for, it's been years, you're kind of giving up, everyone else is moving on, it can be really difficult to keep that momentum, even in your own mind. Even if somebody like me is saying it, you can kind of have a disbelief, where it's the belief that's the most important thing, because I want people to attract in love. And if they are feeling negative about it, if they're feeling like it's not going to happen for me, or what if it never happens, what if I end up alone, if they're having this kind of recurring thoughts in their own mind, I nearly feel like it'll kind of ruin it for them. Do you know what I mean? That they just won't believe it, and then all of a sudden somebody could approach them up at the bar and they're like, no thanks. And they're not even open to a conversation, where, maybe their friend is single and all of a sudden they're going to come over and get chatting and sparks will fly. But if you shut it down immediately, nothing's going to happen. So I try and get people out of that. Do you know?
And so how did you get into all of this? Like, how did you just decide one day, this is what I want to do?
So it was definitely a journey to getting to do work with other people. I suppose that I started out in marketing and events, and I always felt like I wanted to help people, but I didn't really know how in my job. So I always thought maybe I'll end up working with a charity, or maybe I'll go into fundraising at some point. And it wasn't clear, but I knew that, so I was working in just marketing for like hospitality or a corporate environment. I was like, I'm not actually giving back. And something just never sat right with me about that, because I just felt like, to feel like I was making a purpose, like had a purpose in life, I felt like I needed to give back. And that's just how I always felt. So then it was just COVID. I think everyone had a moment in COVID where they were like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Do you know, it really made everyone pause and go, okay, what am I doing? What do I need to change? That was for me anyways. I did a big deep dive and just realized that there were some things in my life that weren't working for me, like different cycles of behavior that I was doing, and just how I was feeling, what I was saying to myself, and just I felt a bit stuck. And I actually went to a psychic medium, just randomly with a friend of mine, and she said, have you considered doing Reiki? You're meant to be helping people to heal. Everything else she said was really accurate. So when she said that, I was like, oh, okay, I do feel like I'm meant to help people. So I looked into it a little bit more. It ended up kind of being suitable, like times and dates and everything like that. So I did the course. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, I love this. I just really loved it. And that was kind of the end of it then. I just started doing, I knew that I'd go into more holistic side of working, and I thought that maybe I wouldn't do practitioner, but maybe I'd do events. Yeah. But I knew some way or another I'd definitely be doing holistic work. So that was kind of the start of it, but it started with my own healing. So it didn't start with being like, I'm going to do this as a profession. It started with Reiki level 1 is about healing yourself. So that's what I did. I really went in just to kind of look after myself and start to go on my spiritual journey, I suppose. And then from then on, I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I just felt so connected. And then ever since then, it's just been a whirlwind because I just found my passion, and I'm so passionate about it. Whereas with marketing and everything, I was never like so passionate. Like, it was just something that I did. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like it connected with me as much.
Yeah, and when I was having a read there through your book, you kind of, your story is really interesting, like more, I feel like you said it so quickly there. So like going back to COVID there, like how, you mentioned going through heartbreak and ignoring all the signs, and like how could you give us that more in detail?
Yeah, of course. So just during COVID, I just went through some heartbreak, and I think that with some, things not working out as I kind of thought that they would, and just that pain that comes with it, I think that it just sparked off a need to heal everything. So it wasn't just relating back to the sadness and kind of everything that I felt from that particular heartbreak. I feel like a lot came up to the surface for me, that I had kind of ran away from or suppressed and just never really dealt with. And I kind of just actually took a bit of ownership for myself at some point, going, okay, I'm constantly in situations that aren't serving me. I keep kind of entertaining things that aren't making me feel good. And I kept kind of breaking my own heart. And then I was like, do you know what? That needs to stop. And the only person that can stop that is me. So I just felt that I was, and when I looked back, even when I was kind of younger, I just was always putting myself in situations, even with friendships and things sometimes, that it was nearly like I didn't value myself. So then other people showed me my lack of value back to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like disrespecting you, or...
Yeah, well, just kind of, I just always felt like I was giving and never receiving. And then I was like, I'm not getting anything from these dynamics. Like, I'm kind of the one that's essentially giving everything, and then I'm getting breadcrumbs or whatever in return. And it was just like, that can't continue if I keep, I suppose, putting myself in those situations, or not setting boundaries, or just not seeing the worth that I bring. I think like during that time of self-discovery, I really realised that my self-worth was on the floor, and the only person that could help me is me.
Yeah.
So I kind of decided that I needed to take ownership of that, because I didn't want that anymore. I was sick of feeling like that. And then even when I went to a heart healing event, it was one of the first holistic workshops I went to. I went with one of my friends, and it's in the book. I was talking about like everybody had to write down something for, like an affirmation for everyone in the room. So I suppose most people didn't know me, so they were writing, I am confident, I can go after my dreams, probably because I came across as quite confident, or I was chatty. But then my friend wrote, I think it was something like, I'm worthy of love. That was it. And I remember being like, I remember trying to say that, and I was just like, I don't believe that. Like, everything else I was fine, because you had to stand up and say all the affirmations people wrote for you. Everything else I was totally fine saying. But when that kind of hit me a little bit, that I kind of croaked up and I couldn't really say it. So then I was like, okay, that's the issue. Do you know? And
you don't
I think
believe it, and
I just didn't feel like I was worthy of true love. Do you know? I always felt that I had to chase something, or just that, I don't know, like it was just I never fully seen the value that I brought, I think. And I was always kind of looking outside of myself, when actually everything that I needed existed within. I just needed to find that. So that's what I say to clients. You always hear it, and it's quite cliche, that you have to love yourself first. But I do understand that. I do think that actually when you do love yourself, or come from a place of self-respect and value for yourself and your time and your efforts and the love that you bring to the table, I think when you have a change of mind about that internally, it's nearly like everything kind of awakens up that's better for you. Like, life has been really good since that patch of time. I don't regret anything that happened. I think that it all happened the way it was meant to. And I could see that I'm not blaming everyone else for, you know, different things in my life. Like, I am taking ownership, I was putting myself in the middle of situations a lot of the time that weren't for me. And when you do things like that, it's just undermining yourself. So I was kind of doing it to myself. And sometimes when I say to clients, it can be a control element because you know how it'll end. So when you're in a cycle like that, there's an element of control because you can kind of foresee the breaking of your own heart. You kind of know things won't work out in a certain way or you'll get hurt in the end. So it's a bit self-sabotagey.
Yeah, they say that if you're constantly paranoid of something, you're going to act a certain way, you're pushing them away when it comes to relationships, like.
Yeah, yeah. There's lots of different things that, you know, you can push people away, or you can, I don't know, like under, you know, I suppose not set boundaries and things like that, and kind of feel a certain way. And, you know, sometimes people are really anxious in relationships because they really want to hold on to somebody, and they're kind of acting anxious then, and that's nearly pushing them away. So there's lots of different attachment styles and all that stuff. And I think, like, I just did a nosedive into all of that when I was going through all that, because I was like, I don't want this anymore. I want to get into something where I can see a future, because I deserve that. But I had to get to the point of knowing you deserve that. You know, you deserve to be happy. Yeah. And I just consistently did things that just, you know, pushed people away, or just didn't get equal give and take. And I was ending up alone then, or just feeling sad. And I was like, I'm doing it to myself though, you know. So I think when I took ownership, I can't change or fix anyone else. I couldn't control any situations outside of myself, or you can't make someone love you, or, you know, you can't make someone see your value, even in friendships and work or anything like that. You have to feel that for yourself and show up for you. And I think when I learned that, I just learned what to focus on, and that was me. So I always say that to clients. So many people are like, will I end up with this guy? Will I get back with my ex? Will this happen? Will that happen? Oh, my boss, will they ever give me a promotion? And I'm like, you have to take it on board yourself to make decisions, because if you leave it in someone else's hands, then it mightn't go in the way that you want.
Yeah. And so what was, obviously you went to, it's called the Heart Healing, isn't it?
Yes.
The event. So after you realised that, what was your next step? What did you do?
So I think, like, I'm trying to even remember. I'm like, God, I feel like it's ages ago. Like, I don't feel like I'm the same person. Does that make sense? Even though I know I am, but I'm looking at who I was, and I feel really sad for her, just because I know how sad she was. So it's always hard to go back to her, I think.
Yeah.
But I know that at the time I went and I studied Reiki. And I was doing a lot of, like, kind of heart healing work. Like, I did a heart healing workshop, which is now what I do actually a lot of the time. I love it. I did a forgiveness workshop. I started kind of giving myself things to do. So, like, little accomplishments, like going driving, and things that I had been putting on the back burner and procrastinating on, nearly for fear that I couldn't do it. So I kept challenging myself to small things, being like, I can do it, and trying to kind of get myself out of the funk that I was in. Yeah. So I was really self-focused for that time, where I was trying to tick things off my list and do things for me. So it wasn't for anyone else. It was just showing up for me. And I was going to healers. I was, doing the healing on myself. I just really kind of started to delve into reading spiritual books, listening to kind of more spiritual podcasts. And look, it took time, because it takes time to break a cycle. There's obviously still times where, self-doubt and self-criticism rears its ugly head. Like, I'm not completely healed by any means, but I'm aware of it now. So it's the awareness that kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow, in terms of, if I start to panic about something, that I'm not going to spiral as much as I would have in terms of my own thought process about myself. Do you know?
You kind of you realise that you're saying something, and then you're like, right, no.
Yeah.
You're stopping yourself. I'll find that sometimes, like, because I know obviously I shouldn't be doing that.
I know.
Wake up in the morning, you might look in the mirror, and then you're like, actually, what am I saying?
I know. But
which is good. Like,
yeah.
Because if you don't, then you're going to go into a spiral of saying all these bad things to yourself, which probably everyone does.
Oh, everyone does. And like, you know, everybody just sees the highlight reel, you know, in life now. You know, when you're going into business, usually you're kind of a bit of a perfectionist if you're going opening your own business. I'd be
like that with posting anything on social media.
Yeah. So you do have a lot of people that go into business have their own kind of perfectionist tendencies, and you want things a certain way, and there's the control element of wanting everything to go a certain way in your career. And I'm certainly like that sometimes. Then I have to just be like, okay, stop, like just let things flow. So I have to take my own advice on board a lot, because I can sound like a wise owl when I'm talking to my clients, and like I have all the knowledge, but I don't. Like, so sometimes I have to catch myself as well when I'm doing things that I say to clients, don't do that, you know, try to think like this, or try to, you know, break up the thought process with this. And I nearly find it difficult, you know, like switching off, meditating, journaling. You know, I can talk about all of that stuff, but sometimes I have to discipline myself and go, okay, you need to be doing this too, you know, because it's very easy to slip off the healthy bandwagon when you're running your own business and you're trying to do everything, wear all the hats, do everything at once. Yeah,
I do feel like that sometimes as well. I'll tell someone, don't just focus on this, you don't need to do anything else. Like, do you ever get I had a girl text me, ask me for advice, like business advice, and I sent her a load of voice notes, and I was just like, do you ever hear of the 80-20 rule or something? Like, as in you need to focus on the 20% that's the most important. And she was like, oh, should I do this or whatever? And I was just like, just do that, you don't need to do anything else. And she actually took it on board, because I've seen her doing it or whatever. And I was actually, when I sent the voice notes, I was just like, I need to listen to myself half the time.
I know.
Because I do post so many jobs, like, or things that I need to do, like, on the back burner, where I'm sitting there replying to like every single email, you know, doing things that can wait.
I know.
Yeah,
it's hard to balance everything. Like, even when I launched the book recently, like even trying to launch the book, that was
that's all. I'm in the middle of updating all my manuals, and that's all. When I was looking at your book, I was just like, fair play to her. I'm going up my head looking at like doing that.
It's so hard. It was just one of those things that I was like, well, I'm doing that, and then once I have an idea in my head,
it has to be done.
It has to be done. And like this year, I'm very chill. I was talking to my friend about it last night. I was like, I feel very lazy because I'm very laid back. I know it's only January and we're meant to be wintering and all that, but normally I'm like, everything has to be done now. But I was like, I think I burnt out essentially last year. I did everything at once. I was all around the country. I was busy like starting my business and writing the book, and I did everything at once. And you'd nearly, like, at the end of it, coming into Christmas, I genuinely was so burnt out. I was exhausted. I'm surprised I didn't get sick. I know everyone got sick at Christmas. I didn't, which I was surprised about. But even when I held the book in my hands, and nobody else will know this because what you see on Instagram is a highlight reel. Do you know? But I was having a meltdown behind the scenes, coming up to like having a finish. It was a really tough time. And I honestly was like, no one's going to read this book. I'm a crap writer. There was all this stuff going on. And then even when I got the book, I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't have this, because I'm so critical of myself sometimes that I find, like, once I picked it up, I was like, oh, I didn't even have that. I thought that it would all be worth, not in a bad way, but like, I thought that when I held it, I'd be like, oh, great. But I was like, oh, I'm terrified to read it in case there's mistakes in it. And then even the book launch, you're worried about,
do you not get someone, is it not the publisher or whatever
the publisher and editor had reread it and read it, and you know, it was a big process. But you know that feeling, it was more so like, I was kind of mortified for myself, being like, who do I think I am writing a book? But nobody sees that side of things. So like, it's just saying that even though I'm helping people to heal, I've done so much healing, you're always going to have that. And it's only now that I'm really proud of it and I'm really excited about it. But I think when you like put yourself under such stress, such strain, you're so busy, everything's spread uneven, you're literally spread thin. It's like you're there, but you're not emotionally there. So I felt at the end of the year that even when I was holding the book, I was just do you know, it just took a moment to be like, oh, okay, you wrote a book, you're having a book launch, everyone who loves you is here, this is really nice. But for me, I was like, oh, I look fat in my dress, oh God, I don't want the photos. Like, that was what my narrative was. So it just shows that, like, even when it looks like people are like, you know, everyone else would have been like, oh my God, fair play to her, but in my head I was picking everything apart. So now I'm aware of that because I've pulled I knew that I was doing that, and I was like, that needs to stop. So now this year I'm like, okay, I don't want to feel like that moving forward, where I'm putting myself under such pressure with projects that I can't actually be happy about it.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, this year I'm being more intentional. I'm not going to flatten myself across everything. It has to be like, I really want, you know, for the book to do nicely and to, you know, get it to where I want it to be, and to get talking to people and networking and just enjoying myself and not burning the candle at both ends, because it's so easy to get into it in business and no one talks about it that much. You know, you kind of only see the highlight reel, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's not a 9 to 5. It's
no, like, as in literally, like, I think during that time I was, because you're trying to like do all your Canva, you've got your business end of accounts was at the same time. I was like, oh, or, you know, end of year accounts. I was like, oh my God, drowning in admin.
How did you even, how long did it take for you to write the book?
So, well, I did it. I signed the contract, I think it was April last year. I started writing it. I'm such a procrastinator, so I needed the crunch. So I think I started writing around May, and then I had it fully sent off in October.
Right, okay, yeah. So
like, and summer's crazy with events, and I was all over the place, like moving around a lot with events, and yeah, it was a mental time. I was like waking up in the morning, typing, going to sleep, late, typing. My poor dog was beside me, panned out, kind of like, oh my God, when is she going to sleep?
So it was like you were consistently doing it every day, were you, for that many? Time?
It wasn't every day, but even if I wasn't typing, in the back of my head, I was like, why aren't you? That's due. You need to do this, or do you know? Then you'd kind of, other things would be, you know, it wasn't just the book either. It was also just the general running of your business. You're like, oh, I'm running events. You have to think about goodie bags and, you know, all the admin that goes with that. The website's down. Oh crap, I need to fix that. Everything kind of comes together, and I don't know, like, for me, it's just me working. So sometimes you're like,
I was literally going to ask you there, like, are you your own? I was literally sitting there this morning, and I was just like, I think I need like a virtual assistant or something.
Oh my God, I've been thinking about that lately. My friend Kira has recommended.
Oh really? Yeah.
Yeah, she said that she is a business owner as well, but she said that was amazing, because I'm really bad with admin. Like my brain's so creative that when it comes to like a menial task, it's like it just goes do and doesn't want to do it.
See, I'm kind of like all them. Like, I'd be the one that, like, I'll do all the stupid things. It's like, what do they say? Don't work in the business, work on the business. Work on the business. Where I'd be the other way around. I'd be in doing all the other stuff when I'm like, this is not what I should be doing.
I know, but it's so hard.
And then you can't grow it, you know, kind of that way. That's what I'm finding myself that I'm doing a lot. Where I'm like, I'd love someone in just to get all these things done for me. Like, just come in and
even do like the, you know, having your accounts up to date, your filing, do you know, like all that stuff that, like, it's like my brain just walks out of the room and I'm told that I have to do things like that. I just can't. I can't focus on that. Whereas like that, I'm like, oh my God, what's the next idea? What should I do? Where should I go? But it'd be very handy if somebody could just send a couple of emails to venues and be like, hey, what's your price? What are your dates available? And then just tell me. Do you know, like things like that, so that you're not back and forth on email all the time, because it's hard. It's hard to do everything. But I think it's good to talk about that too, because when people come into me and they're like, I want to start a business, I'll talk to them about it, and like if they're talking about ideas, and I'll tell them, like, you know, how they could maybe work on that or scale that, and I'll get really passionate about it and really excited about it. And I'm getting all these messages, you know, like, because I channel from the angels, so some people won't be into that element of my job, but it's nearly like I have the answers for them. So I'm always like, oh my God, I'm so surprised at my knowledge. But I'm like, it's not me. That's why, because it's the angels talking through to help that person to know where they need to go.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why don't I take that on board a little bit more for me? Like, do you know what I mean? It's so hard to to listen to yourself.
So like, would you like obviously hear, see the way you're saying the angels are saying this to you. So would you get something that you would have never heard?
Yeah.
And that's how.
Yeah, like a lot of the time if I'm talking to somebody, I catch up with what I'm saying afterwards. So my mouth's just running, which is a little bit like daunting sometimes, because I'm like, oh, what did I just say? But it just comes really quickly through me.
Yeah.
And then the cards are backing it up and everything. So it's sometimes, you know, even I can't take questions from somebody because it's just going really quickly and I have to be connected. So yeah, sometimes there's real nuggets of wisdom in there and I'm like, wow. Do you know?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what I would have said, but definitely if I listen to more about the angelic advice, life would be so much easier. But it's hard because then, you know, you have life, you have everyday trials and tribulations, and it's not always so simple. But it is interesting. And then as well, you know, when I'm channeling mediumship and a loved one is in the room, and I don't do that people don't come to me for just mediumship. It's only if somebody is there with me, if you get me, in terms of their granny or their mother or something. So before Christmas, a lot of loved ones were coming through for people. It was really special because I was talking about, you know, there was this lady, I think she passed away a couple of weeks before their Christmas, and Christmas is her favourite time of year, and she was talking about all the things that she wanted her daughter and her family to do to remember her for Christmas, and it was really emotional. And she was talking about jewellery, where she was keeping it stored for who she wanted it to go to, that there's these photos in the press that she needs to hang up, you know. She was like, oh, I have paintings and they need to be hung up, don't let them gather dust, and she had all these things. Yeah. But it was really nice because it was completely her personality, even like her words, her expressions, her phrases, and the daughter was just so happy. And any time that I have things like that with a loved one coming through, and you're talking with their expressions, with all the things that they want to say and get through to the person, it's really special. Like, it's so lovely. So I'm really proud that I get to, you know, I'm not proud, but I'm delighted that I get to do that. It always wows me. I'm always like, is that correct? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I trust that the information is coming through, but it still surprises me sometimes. You know, I'm still like, oh, okay.
And so see the way, like you said, you do I thought it was just through the cards and stuff. So would that be through the cards as well?
No, that's just...
And how did you...
Yeah.
Because I used to know a girl that used to be hearing stuff in our house all the time, and someone turned around to her and was like, you should be a medium.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, how did that come?
So it's not... I wouldn't be hearing voices or anything like that. Now, some people would. So some people would hear voices or see a figure, and they'd be able to talk about that. For me, it just comes through as an inner knowing. So it's like you know that dialogue you have with your own voice, the one I was talking about earlier where I was criticising myself. You know, that inner dialogue. Yeah. So that inner dialogue is just my voice, but it just has this wisdom.
So
it's nearly...
just get like thoughts and things in your head.
So I might be working with somebody and I'm just doing a healing session. Normally during the healing session I'm working with psychic energy, and for anyone who doesn't know, psychic energy would be your living energy. So say I'm working with you, Demi, I might pick up on a relationship that you're in, maybe a past relationship that there's a little bit...
Go on, do it.
But you know, I'm not switched on now, but you know that kind of feeling. So I might be... work, and then I might say, oh, did you get bullied when you were 12, or were you in a relationship when you were like 20, and was that a bit rocky? And like I'll be talking about things like that, okay? And it's nearly like the person be like, oh my God, yeah, because that's their psychic living energy. So I'm picking up on people around them, situations that have happened to them. The mediumship then is passed on, so passed on loved ones. So when I'm working with passed on loved ones, it's nearly like I might be just working with somebody's energy and I'm doing my usual thing, and then I just feel Granny beside me, and I'm like, in my head I'm like, are you Demi's granny? And then the granny's like, yes, kind of. And it's like a conversation to myself. And then I'll go, okay. And then I'll ask, well, what do you want? Do you want to talk to her today? Like, do you want to get, so, because sometimes they just want to be there and they don't want somebody to spook. And sometimes they're like, I really need to talk. So they'll just kind of, so then if I start talking, just saying, oh, you know, Demi, I think I have your grandmother here. Was she in a nursing home? Did she die around the age of 96, for example? And then you're like, yes, that's my granny. And I'm like, is that on your mother's side? Yes. Okay, this is her. So then I'll just start kind of having a conversation in my own head, asking what they want to say. And I'm nearly just talking it out then, so that they're having a conversation. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's actually quite nice because I'm the middleman in between, I suppose, the granny who's passed away and the person who's lost their grandmother. So it's lovely, but it is scary because then you're like, God, I hope I'm getting this correct. Do you know? And then your inner voice comes in going, you know, my own little critical voice is like, well, are you doing this properly? Like, because there's so much there, you know, people sometimes come in and they really want connection, and you're like, oh God, it's so scary in case I don't do it right, and I just need to learn to trust better, you know, to trust.
Where was the moment where you knew you were able to do that? Like,
yeah, I know. So I was always told by psychics or mediums that I went to, being like, you can do what I do. And I was like, no, thank you. I don't really want to do that. Do you know?
yeah, because like, being honest with you now, like I've went to ones before. One of them, like, got loads right for me.
Yeah.
Which was mental. Like, she knew I was going to have a salon, and
wow.
Like, she told me where it was going to be, and I actually had it there, and it was mental. And then the month I would have met me ex, but then she got, I don't know, obviously they say things change and stuff, but then the last one I went to, she got like nearly everything wrong.
Okay.
So I kind of, I don't know, and I kind of, I don't know if obviously I know you do that.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like, I don't know if because obviously I don't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm open-minded to it.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit, so I'm kind of like, I don't know how it works.
I think that it's finding the right person for you. Like, it's an energy exchange at the end of the day. And I think sometimes if people come in and they're quite closed off, it's definitely not as big a flow. It's not that you have to be talking and telling me things. But if someone's like closed off, they're scared. If you imagine trying to even have a conversation with somebody, that's really difficult. You're kind of pulling at things. So when the energy's flowing, it's so nice because then somebody's open to it. So it's always different for everybody coming in. And sometimes when somebody comes in on the first time when I'm doing the healing and guidance, the guidance might be more related to the past because maybe they're not where they need to be right now because we need to get them ready for what's coming up in the future for them. But like you said there's always free will. Yeah, so people you could have decided, you know what, I'm too scared to go out on my own. And that would have changed the trajectory of what could happen. Maybe you would have done it in that scenario 10 years later, but that would have been a different, like you would have created a different business.
Yeah,
to some degree. Do you know what I mean? So everyone has free will. So I
get what you're saying.
If I'm saying to somebody, oh, I see, like, I see this business, and I think I was talking to someone recently where I was like, do you work with acne prone skin? Like, it's that, and I was like, and I was so accurate about this business that she was going to build. And she was like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And I was like, are you thinking about going in, like, kind of, that's your niche, specialising in this? Yes, and all this kind of stuff. That was really exciting because I was like, oh my God, it's so clear. There's another lady that I could see her coffee shop. I was like, you're going to have a coffee shop. I seen like the colours inside, that it was going to be quite retro, that she'd have a vintage shop attached to it. And that was really cool because I could see her vision. Yeah. So I knew that they were for those people.
And she actually was like,
she was like, that's what I want to do. Yeah. But the thing is, that person might not go and take the plunge. Like, I was encouraging her to do it, giving her guidance, talking about joining the local enterprise office and getting her ducks in a row and that kind of stuff. But she may not decide to do that, and it might always be a dream. You know what I mean? So I do think that there are destined things that you're meant to do, but we can speed up and slow down destiny by our decision making. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Right, so what could be? So that's why when people are like, "Oh, when will it happen?" I'm like, I don't know. because the trajectory you're on now could be 6 months, but you could go out tomorrow and start like speeding up the pace, and
So
it
you'd
could
never
be 3
say
months.
dates and stuff like that?
No, because I don't. I never fully believe in that, because I think that, you know, you could be going down, you know, encouraged to go road A, and you might turn road B. It doesn't mean you're not going to go to the same destination, but it's a different road, so everything kind of changes.
Yeah.
It's the same, you know, when you get into relationships, if you don't honour it, if you don't value it when you're in it, if it breaks up, you know, maybe in another life, like in sliding doors or whatever, it could have worked out, but maybe in one way or another it didn't this time. So I think that some things are, personally, when I'm working with clients' energy, I try not to give them time. And because then, you see, if I tell you, for example, if somebody comes in and they're like, when am I going to meet somebody, and they're really like, they want to meet someone, and you know, and if I say to them, now I might be like, I see somebody in your orbit, I see all this stuff, maybe work on X, Y and Z in the meantime, and I'll give them their advice. If I said to them, it's going to be 3 months time, now that other person needs to come into their, so they, like, during that time, if they decide, I'm not going out that night, you know, while the other person's out, or I'm not going to join that course and the other person's joined it, that changes the course of destiny to some degree, because even though you feel like you should go, you're not going. Does that make sense? Like, the universe has to conspire to bring two people together, and they both have to be open and receptive to one another. So there's a lot going on, if you look at it from the spiritual side, to get two people together. So maybe, you know, there's stuff going on in the other person's life that needs to be kind of closed off and things like that. And maybe, you know, the 4th month this person's coming in, you know, maybe it's 4 months, you know, but by the end of the 3rd month, that other person would have closed off, because they would have been like, no, it's never going to happen, because it hasn't happened. Or they might latch on to someone that they might kind of meet in that 3 months and go, that this must be them, when actually that's not a right, and they're kind of trying to settle for less than what they actually want, because it's nearly like, well, that has to be them. Does that make sense? So I try not to do that, because I feel like people will kind of latch on, and I certainly used to, when people used to tell me, and then I'd kind of fixate and fascinate. And when you're working with manifestation and kind of the law of attraction and everything, if you hold on to something so tightly, it doesn't come in. It's blocked. So what I try and do is not do that, because otherwise it actually prevents things from happening as quickly as what it could happen. Does that make sense?
It's to keep thinking about something and latching on to stuff.
Well, yeah, because if you're obsessing about something, or if I say in 3 months' time, and then you're kind of fixated on that, and like I said, it's like all your energy and motivation and you will drop after the 3 months.
Would it not be kind of, so see the way you're talking about manifestation and stuff like that, say like your goals and stuff, would it not be kind of in that way, to be focusing on constantly latching onto that now?
I don't think so. I think that a lot of the time you'll kind of notice as well, anytime that I have latched onto something being like, it has to happen now, when I'm not saying that you don't take action, because you do, you work towards something, you take action, then you have to let it go. That's part of the manifestation, is letting it go, letting it flow, letting things come when they're ready to. So for example, you know, a few weeks ago I was like, I really want to get on podcasts, and I was, you know, all this side of things, and you're kind of latching on, and, you know, now would be great. But it didn't happen until now. So as in, you know, I had to let things go and just let the universe flow, and things just happened then, where it just automatically came around. It's what I wanted. It's what I, you know, sent emails about and what I worked towards. It wasn't the right time at the time, but a few weeks later it was. But if I was disappointed and kind of felt a certain way, it might have changed that a little bit for me. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of say to people, let things unfold as they're meant to. If, you know, some people go, you know, am I meant to get back with my ex? I'm like, it's your ex or someone better. You know, don't fixate on someone. Don't fixate on one tiny fragment, because something bigger could be coming.
Yeah, could
you know,
be
we limit
closing your
ourselves
door
sometimes
on other opportunities and
yeah,
stuff.
because so many times I see people and they stay knocking on a closed door. It's painful after time if you think about it, knocking on a closed door. You can spend as long as you want looking at the closed door, hoping it would open, or you can turn around and see a whole lot of other possibilities with other doors open. So I always say to people, try and be open to the other doors opening. Yes, maybe sometimes it's not exactly what you thought, but it's probably better. Do you know,
Feel
any
like-
relationship that ended before, any job I never got, anything that didn't work out at the time was obviously devastating at the time. But now I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Thank God those things didn't work out, because I'm really happy where I'm at now. So it's only in hindsight people see it.
And I feel like also anyone listening that would be probably going for this type of a fella, thinking I keep getting in the same relationships, I'm going through the same cycle. I think we spoke about before we started the podcast. And I think you mentioned as well that would have been saying to one of your clients that there's a man coming or whatever, and he might be not your type, which we were speaking about as well. So basically you're going to keep going for the same person. How do you turn around to your client and say, like, what do you, so to knock off the fella's not going to be your type, you might not be interested.
Yeah.
So
I've had to say that a few times, because usually when you're kind of in a cycle of, I suppose, trauma bonding and things like that. Now, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but it's just from what I see with people and kind of my own exploring. And it's like that high, that adrenaline rush, that cortisol, where it's nearly like it's a chase kind of a thing sometimes, and you get these butterflies in your tummy. And what I always say to people is, that's anxiety. That's anxiety. That's your body kind of reacting in a way where it's like, you know, not knowing where you stand and things like that. It's that kind of
the chase.
Yeah, it's that kind of high.
Yeah.
And you're doing it to yourself and you're used to that. So you'll kind of be used to it. So then when you meet somebody that might be a bit different from your usual type, you might be like, oh, it's a bit boring. It's a bit calm. It's a bit peaceful. Where's the sparks? And it's not to say that you're not going to have chemistry with somebody, because you do need that too. You need attraction. But it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to feel like this, like, crazy, like on a high kind of buzz, because that your body's not reacting in a state of panic anymore, because you might know where you stand with this person, or they're showing up in the way that you know where what they feel, they're expressing themselves, they're mature, and you're like, oh, okay. So it's different. So you might kind of go, oh, but I don't know if I have any passion, or I don't know if there's a spark. I always tell people, give it a bit of a chance, like, see what happens, because I think, for me, I think love feels like coming home. Like, I think it feels like coming home. It's like peaceful, like you don't have to pretend, you don't have to be on high alert. It's just like this peaceful. So that's what I think love is now. Whereas before, I would have been all about, you know, a different thing. And it's not to say that you know, you can't have chemistry, you can't have sparks, because you do with the right person. But it's a different feeling to the anxiety-ridden, Jesus, does somebody like me? Oh my God. And this kind of, you know, oh, they haven't contacted me, when will they contact me? And I do see clients coming in, and I completely resonate and understand of that feeling. But I always say, like, you deserve better. And when you start going out dating again, write down your list of attributes and qualities. So, for example, you want someone kind, someone caring, someone who's committed, that kind of thing. And if they're not really ticking those boxes, then they're probably not the right person. Not that you're going to find someone perfect, but basic qualities and attributes in somebody that you require to feel secure and stable, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and I didn't even, in my previous relationships, I would have had that bit of anxiety of, and it wasn't even like, at the start, it would have been like, oh, why are they not texting me back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then it was even like when you're with them and not even realising that anxiety was there.
Yeah, that kind of like pain in your chest, looking at what are they doing, and they're...
like, it was kind of like a thing of feeling like, say, I don't know, like it's mental. I was literally only saying this to him the other day, like, I was just like, I'll say I'm working or something on the laptop, or like we live together, and I'll be thinking like, oh, he's annoyed at me that I'm working, and he's just he doesn't even care. Like, I have this anxiousness, and only now it's kind of calming down, because I've realised that he's not like he's not like that, and it's actually mental. Yeah, where I didn't even realise that I even had that.
Yeah, you just have to unlearn certain behaviours or certain mindsets that, you know, you might have grown accustomed to or used to, you might have grown up with. It's the same with the other person in the relationship. You know, at the beginning of any relationship, it's very testy, because you're kind of like, do we like each other? Like, how do they feel about me? And everyone's bringing all their baggage in, and it's a bit like it's a bit shaky. But I think like I just say, just give it a little bit of a chance at the beginning, even if it feels different, even if it's not your usual type. You know, if your usual type hasn't been working, maybe it's time for a little change. Do you know?
Yeah.
If you constantly end up with somebody who's, you know, not treating you well and things like that, and that's been your usual type, and you know, maybe it started out good and then it hasn't, you know, just recognize that and go, okay, well, I deserve better, so you know, I want to feel a certain way. And you just go from your own sense of self and your own, you know, trusting your gut.
Yeah. And
you know, because usually you'll go, oh well, I knew that would happen, you know, or I knew there was something off at the beginning, I just couldn't trust him. Like, you know, listen to yourself and just see if it's something that's coming from your heart, or is it a recurrence in your mind from the past. And that's why when a lot of clients come into me, we cleanse them from the past. So I'm like, that old relationship from 9 years ago, that has to go. The reason that has to go is because it's affecting your current way of being in a relationship, or your mindset about relationships, or your mindset about commitment or love. Maybe your parents got divorced when you were 6. That needs to be cleansed, because all of a sudden you know, you're coming up to a time of engagement. You might be kind of worried about getting into something in case it ends, even if you're really happy. So there's lots of things that people feel they're not fully aware that they're carrying along with them with their baggage. So what I try and do is get them to unload the baggage so that they can kind of start on a clean slate in the new job, the new business, the new love. So that's what I help people to do, because they nearly feel like they do a 180. It's like, oh my God, I feel different. And it's like, yeah, because you're not carrying around that wounded self anymore.
But yeah, so you mentioned you do Reiki as well.
Yeah.
So what's that like?
So that's the energy healing. So the Reiki is like a form of energy healing. So there's so many different types of energy healing, and Reiki is just a segment of that. And I love it because that's what I'm doing when I'm talking about the emotional, mental, physical blocks within the body. So a lot of the time, grief can come up in the body, for example, or heartbreak. You feel the break, you like feel it in your heart. And that's the physical symptom. So I'll help to kind of ease them away if they're associated with an emotional or mental. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So usually like grief, sadness, heartbreak, anger, they flare up in the body in different ways. So sometimes someone mightn't find me until they're crippled. Do you know, that they're like, oh God, I really need somebody now. My anxiety is through the roof. But maybe it's something that they think is now, and they're like, I don't understand why I'm really anxious at the moment. Like there's nothing happening in my life. And I might go, oh, like what happened 12 years ago? I'm like, did your dad pass away 12 years ago? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, that's coming up now to be healed. It's coming up through anxiety. For you to heal it, it's this pain. But they're not going to know that coming into me, that it's an old wound that's resurfacing. So what I try and do is I try and help somebody to deal with the past so that they can feel better in the present and make better decisions towards their future that are actually more soul aligned. So for example, if they're meant to do things in life, if they're meant to meet somebody, if all of this is kind of playing out in a beautiful way, I don't want them to miss out on that because they're not in the right space in the present moment, because everything we do today impacts tomorrow.
And you would have, so everything you would have that you do, you would have learned through like doing courses and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I did the Reiki courses, and that's where I learned the psychic mediumship. So I think it's going into practitioner, so that would be what I would have done to do my case studies, to work with people. I had to do like kind of psychic mediumship development. So part of that would be, for example, if you tell me, oh, okay, I'm just going to give you an example of a name, my friend Kevin Fahey, he's alive. And then I'd have to write down about Kevin Fahey.
I feel like I know that name.
I'm like, do you? I just made up a random name. But I was like, I'd have to write down all about Kevin. So I was writing like pages about this person who I had no idea who it was. I just knew that their name is this and they're alive. And then I was writing about 3 kids, married, lives in the suburbs, blah, blah, blah. And then with the mediumship, you know, Mary Burke, for example, and deceased, and you wouldn't get any more information. And then all of a sudden you're writing about this person who's deceased, how they died, what their life was like beforehand, that kind of thing. So I didn't know I could do that until I tried doing it. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't know... I knew that I'd like good intuition and things like that, but I didn't know that I was capable of writing 3 pages about somebody I didn't know until I did it. And then I was like, oh my God, that's mad.
So you had someone in front of you and you just had to say a name?
Yeah, I didn't even get to see the person or meet see a photo of the person who's passed away or meet the person.
And it was a real person that you ended up writing
It would have
about?
just been like you saying, okay, Kevin Fahey alive. That would have been it. It's all the information I would have gotten. I wouldn't have even met them.
And it was actually everything was...
Yeah, and then I would sit across from, another person on the course. And like, I was quite strong with the psychic mediumship, and they might say, okay, walk into the person's house. So obviously you're allowing me essentially, because I can't just sit. If people are like, does she just sit at home and like venture into people's houses in her mind and stuff? No, Jesus, I would never do things like that. And
I'm like, I'd love to give you a name now and see if you...
I'm like, oh, don't put me under pressure. I don't want to be crap. But no, like I was able to walk into their house, and I could tell where everything was in the house. Like, I could see where the stairs were, where where all the different parts of the house were, the colours on the walls, the drive-in, where you drive in, all the flowers, the flower pots and things like that. I could see like the paintings in the house, and I could see all the little small things, and I was able to describe it to the person who was sitting across from me that was their home. So I was mad. But again, like, I didn't know I could do any of that till I tried. So like, I do think we all have a psychic ability. Like, we know ourselves when, if somebody walks in bad form and it's like the whole room goes cold, and you're like, oh my God. And they mightn't need to say one thing, but you're like, oh, I feel something happened there. You walk into your friend's house after having a fight with their husband. There's a feeling there. You're like, oh.
You can see it in their face that there's something wrong.
The husband could be gone off for the day, but there's a sense in the house that something's off. Do you know, you kind of have those inklings sometimes, or where you go, oh, I kind of feel like I shouldn't travel today. And it's nearly then like you hear about like something that happened where you would have been going. You're like, oh, thank God I didn't. Like, we all have those kind of abilities, and it comes true as an intuition. So I do think if people go out and try and strengthen them, that they can. But again, I didn't know that I could do all this until I tried. So maybe everyone at home needs to give it a go and see if they have abilities that they don't know about.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on, Amber. It was lovely to speak to you.
Oh, thanks, Demi. It was so nice.
So if anyone is looking to reach out, where can they find you?
So they can follow me on Instagram at Amber Moon Holistic. Or they can look me up online on my website, www.ambermoonholistic.com. And that would probably be the best way. I am on TikTok, but sure, I never bother. So,
and you have your book as well, Repair Not Repeat, so they can buy this on your
Repair Not Repeat
website.
How to heal your heart and release unhealthy cycles. If you feel that that's you that needs to release unhealthy cycles, repair your heart and learn something spiritual in the meantime, they can just find it on my website. So again, www.ambermoonholistic.com.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. It was so nice. Thank you.